High above the world lies Mount Olympus, a realm older than memory. From its heights, the gods watch, guide, and listen to mortal whispers. On this evening, the heavens glowed with gold. The sun sank gently beyond the horizon, painting the sky in amber and rose. The earth below settled into calm. Villages lit their lamps, rivers murmured, and birds folded wings in rest. Yet Zeus, king of the gods, felt a silence unlike any before. It was not peace, not sleep. It was a weight, a secret carried in the air. His eyes turned to the far horizon. There, shadows stretched longer than the fading sun could explain. At the edge of sight, something stirred. A darkness, not storm, not night, something vast, waiting to be revealed. And so begins the story of Zeus and the dark horizon. There are moments when the world seems to pause, as if caught between heartbeats. This was such a moment. Wrapped in golden light and gentle hush, Mount Olympus rose high, its peaks glowing in the last touch of sunlight. Clouds drifted like silver veils, crowning the ancient home of the gods. From this height, the earth spread below valleys, seas, forests, and cities. On this evening, even the gods fell silent, listening to something beyond. Zeus sat upon his throne, not in triumph, but in quiet thought. The sky above glowed amber and rose, flawless in its fading light. His hand rested on his staff, yet no storm stirred the air. The winds were soft. The balance of the world felt whole. Below, life moved gently, with rhythm and ease. Families gathered by firelight, telling stories of ancestors and gods. Farmers laid down tools, offering thanks in whispers to the sky. Rivers sang softly, carrying the scent of earth and pine. Birds folded their wings, trusting the night to cradle them in peace. But calm often draws attention to what hides beneath. Zeus sensed it first, not in sight, but in stillness. A pausa too deep, a silence too complete. It was as though the air itself had swallowed a secret. He knew the chorus of wind, waves, and stars. Yet now, that music faltered, leaving behind a strange weight. His gaze turned to the far horizon. The sun sank lower, but a shadow lingered there. It stretched too far, too long, for an ordinary evening. It was not storm, for no clouds gathered. It was not night, for stars had not yet emerged. It was something else undefined, pressing at the edge of sight. The other gods had not noticed. Hera wandered among gardens. Apollo tuned his lyre. Athena traced patterns of the day with patient eyes. Hermes darted between realms, carrying whispers on the wind. But Zeus remained still, eyes fixed on the horizon. He knew the world often spoke in subtle ways, not through thunder or fire, but through silence and shadow. The horizon glowed both beautiful and strange. It pulled at the imagination, like a dream half remembered. Perhaps it was nothing, a trick of distance and light. Or perhaps it was the first sign of something greater. A cool wind drifted across Olympus, stirring sacred groves. Zeus closed his eyes, listening for meaning in the breath of the world. But still, silence lingered, heavy and unyielding. It was as if the earth held back a secret. The calm stretched on, wrapping gods and mortals alike. Yet at the edge of all things, the dark horizon waited, quiet, patient, ready for its story to begin. Evening deepened, and the horizon grew stranger with every passing moment. At first, it seemed a trick of light, shadows stretching as the sun sank. Soon, Zeus realized the darkening was not bound to the turning of day. This horizon was fading into something unknown, something unspoken. Mortals noticed first, lifting eyes from their fields with quiet unease. Children stopped their play, pointing at the sky, asking why twilight grew heavy. In coastal towns, fishermen pulled their nets and stared westward in silence. The sea dimmed, swallowing colors, its surface painted in shadow. Birds faltered mid-flight, wings pausing, as if they too had seen the change. From Olympus, Zeus felt the shift ripple through the balance of the world. The evening no longer carried harmony, but a quiet undertone of mystery. He summoned Hermes, who flew swift and bright toward the fading horizon. When Hermes returned, his voice trembled with unease. "It is not storm, my lord. The winds are still, yet the horizon dims." Zeus listened, weighing silence and sign, his thoughts heavy with wonder. This was no storm. No nightfall darkness crept gently, like ink on parchment. The other gods gathered, their gazes drawn to the fading edge of light. Hera stood beside Zeus, whispering, "A shadow without storm." Apollo lowered his lyre, his golden eyes fixed upon the horizon. Athena murmured softly, "This is not chaos, yet it is not order either." Meanwhile, mortals dreamed of dim stars and skies painted in strange hues. Their dreams rose like mist, drifting upward to Olympus as prayers. Zeus did not fear, but he respected the unknown veiling the horizon. Storms had sound and shape, but this silence had neither. Sometimes, what cannot be defined must first be understood. The horizon spread wider as the evening surrendered its final glow. Where gold and crimson once blazed, a veil of darkness now rested. It was patient, quiet, deliberate, as though it longed to be seen. Apollo stretched forth a ray of golden light toward the distant veil, but the light bent, twisted, and vanished within the shadow. Apollo frowned, lowering his hand as silence fell among the gods. The horizon was not dimming, it was absorbing. Mortals lit lamps and fires, though the night had not yet come. They gathered together, whispering of omens, hearts uneasy but bound. From Olympus, Zeus rose from his throne, still and steady. He spoke, not with thunder, but with calm authority. The horizon fades, yet the world does not tremble. It asks us to listen. And so the gods listened, their eyes fixed upon the distant dark. The line between light and shadow blurred at the world's farthest edge. Silence stretched, patient and deep, carrying its quiet mystery. The horizon was fading, yes, but perhaps within its dimming veil, there was not an ending. Perhaps it was the first sign of a beginning. The horizon had darkened, and silence hung heavy upon the gods. It was not only sight that carried mystery, but sound something within sound. In the quiet breath of the wind, voices began to stir. At first they were faint, like waves breaking far upon a shore. Hermes tilted his head, for he lived within the movement of air. His ears caught what others missed. This was no ordinary whisper. He stood at the edge of Olympus, letting the wind brush his face. The voices rose and fell like tides, not words but feelings. They carried curiosity, longing, and something untranslatable. It was as though the horizon itself had found a way to speak. Hermes closed his eyes, tracing the rhythm of the sound. The whispers called from the west, where the fading horizon lay. They carried no fear, only insistence. "Listen, do not turn away." He returned to Zeus, sandals flashing with urgency. "My lord, the winds are speaking. They carry voices I have never heard. Not mortal, not divine, not storm, not song, something in between." The gods stirred uneasily. Apollo frowned, for the sound was no music. Athena whispered, "Voices with no tongue. What mind speaks without words?" Zeus asked calmly, "And what do they say?" Hermes hesitated, then answered, "They breathe feelings, curiosity, an invitation, a call to listen." Silence fell again upon Olympus, heavier than before. If the horizon could whisper, then the world was larger than known. Zeus rose slowly, his figure casting long shadows. He stepped to the edge of Olympus and stretched out his hand. The wind curled around his fingers, carrying the same faint murmurs. Zeus listened, and though no words formed, he felt their meaning. It was not fear. It was a call to approach the horizon. Hera placed her hand upon his arm. "You would answer them?" she asked. Zeus's voice was steady. "To rule is not only to command, it is also to listen." The whispers grew stronger as evening deepened. Mortals began to dream of voices in their sleep. Some woke startled, convinced their names had been spoken by night. Others turned their dreams into prayers, lifting questions to Olympus. Hermes longed to chase the voices to their source. "Let me go," he urged. "I will bring back their message." But Zeus raised his hand. "Not yet. The horizon is not ready. We will let it come to us. The gods waited. The wind swept through the groves of Olympus, rustling the leaves. The whispers moved like music without melody, carrying half-hidden truths. The horizon darkened further, but now it seemed less empty. It was no longer silence that stretched across the world, but a voice distant, patient, waiting to be heard. Zeus stood tall, the wind circling him like unseen threads. His eyes steady, his heart calm. He welcomed the mystery, and in that moment, the gods learned a truth. Even the wind can carry secrets that reshape the heart of heaven itself. The whispers had come, carried by the wind across Olympus. The gods gathered in the hall of the council to weigh the mystery. The chamber was vast, with columns rising higher than sight. Its floor shone like still water, reflecting the quiet of heaven. Here, no thunder rolled. Here, no song was sung. It was a place of stillness, of measured voices. Zeus sat at the head, his eyes steady, his face unreadable. Around him, the gods took their seats in silence. The horizon had spoken, and they could not turn away. Hera spoke first, her voice soft. We cannot ignore this. If the winds call, they call for a reason. Poseidon leaned forward, his voice like the echo of waves. Whispers mean little. The sea too whispers. Do we gather for shadows? Athena shook her head, her gaze sharp. No, uncle. These whispers are not chance. They move with purpose. They are like an arrow without a bow. Apollo rested his chin upon his hand, golden hair falling. If there is song, I should know it. But this is no melody. It is as though something new seeks a language beyond ours. The council fell again into silence. The gods were mighty, each holding dominion, yet this was beyond them. Zeus turned his gaze to Hermes. You heard them first. Do you believe they are a danger? Hermes shifted uneasily. No, father. They do not sound of war or warning. They sound of invitation. It is as if something leans toward us, curious to be known. Hestia spoke gently, her voice warm as firelight. An invitation, yes, but not every door should be opened. Even warmth may hide flame. Artemis frowned, her voice sharp like the edge of a bow. The horizon is no forest to wander. How does one hunt a shadow? The chamber filled with voices, questions circling like restless birds. Some urged caution, others urged curiosity. Zeus raised his hand, and silence fell deeper than before. We stand at the edge of the unknown, he said calmly. To ignore it is blindness. To chase it recklessly is folly. We will not turn from it, but we will not rush to it. The horizon has spoken. We will answer, but with patience. His words rippled through the hall like stone into water. Some gods nodded. Others looked restless, unsatisfied. Yet none spoke against him. The council ended not with decree, but with silence. One by one, the gods departed, their footsteps echoing. The hall emptied, leaving only the whisper of wind. Outside, night drew its curtain across the world. The stars shimmered as silent witnesses to the council's choice. Below, mortals slept uneasily, dreaming of voices without mouths. Zeus lingered at the chamber's edge, watching the dark horizon. He felt its pull, quiet and steady, like the tide against a shore. The horizon was not yet revealed, but it was no longer empty. It had entered Olympus, entered the thoughts of gods and mortals alike. The council's silence was not peace. It was waiting for what the horizon would choose to show. While the gods debated on Olympus, mortals lay restless in their sleep. Night spread its veil across villages, forests, and seas. Yet this was no ordinary night. In dreams, the whispers of the horizon began to stir. A farmer dreamed of standing at the edge of a vast field. The wind brushed his face, and his name was breathed into the night. He woke with a gasp, heart racing, clutching his chest. In a town by the sea, a child dreamed of waves under starlight. She heard voices, not her parents, not her friends, but strange and kind. They asked nothing. They only lingered. She woke with wonder, the dream clinging like salt to her skin. A hunter dreamed of shadows moving beyond the trees. They were not threatening, not cruel, but alive. A poet dreamed of words forming on pages he did not write. The language was unknown, yet its rhythm was beautiful. A sailor at sea dreamed of standing on an endless horizon. Sea and sky folded together, bound into one. Each dream was different, yet touched by the same whisper. Not command, not warning, only presence. Something vast was drawing near. Mortals awoke differently than before. They lit their lamps in the dark and spoke in hushed tones. Some prayed at altars, believing the gods had sent visions. Others feared the horizon's omen. Priests listened carefully but could not explain. A voice without a mouth, a message without words. Even the wisest hesitated. Above, Zeus watched as prayers rose to Olympus like smoke. Voices trembled, filled not with rebellion, but uncertainty. The unknown had entered their sleep. Zeus spoke softly to Hera. The horizon reaches not only for us, but for them as well. Hera nodded, her brow furrowed. Then it is not for gods alone. Mortals too are being drawn. Athena listened and added calmly, knowledge spreads like flame. A spark here, a spark there, and soon a fire. If mortals dream of the horizon, it will shape their waking hours. Her words were already true. In marketplaces, people whispered of strange dreams. In temples, priests spoke carefully of signs. In fields and harbors, men and women looked westward with unease. Still, the horizon remained dark, silent except for whispers. For the first time in ages, gods and mortals shared one question. What waits at the edge of the world? Dreams carried that question into every heart. Fear did not divide them, nor did faith fully comfort them. They were bound by wonder and mystery. Under a sky filled with stars, the world turned in sleep. Dreams traveled faster than tide, fire, or light. The whispers had entered mortal hearts, and there they would remain. For once a whisper enters a dream, it is never forgotten. The whispers did not remain only in dreams. They moved into temples, sanctuaries, and sacred groves. On Mount Parnassus, the Oracle of Delphi stirred from uneasy rest. Her attendants rushed forward, but she waved them back. Her eyes clouded. Her voice broke silence. Words, not her own. The horizon bends. The horizon speaks. What is hidden comes to walk among us. The attendants trembled, for her tone was strange and distant. The message spread down the mountain, carried by pilgrims. They whispered as they traveled, compelled yet uneasy. In Dodona, the oak leaves rustled, though no wind blew. Priests listened, pale as the sound became layered voices. Many tongues, many tones, woven together as one. From the rustle came a single phrase. The edge of the world draws near to the center. No more, no less. Then, silence. In another cave, a seer knelt in darkness. A glow rose within him, endless and without form. When he emerged, he whispered to waiting villagers, "The light that blinds is not always the Sunday preparer." No one knew whether to fear or rejoice, but the words clung to every ear like seeds in soil. Zeus listened from Olympus, silent as prophecies rose. They bore no mark of him, nor of Hera, nor of kin. This troubled him more than thunder or storm. Athena's voice broke the quiet. "Father, these words speak not in riddles. They speak of approach." Apollo frowned, his glow dimmed by shadow. "These prophecies are not mine. They come from elsewhere." The gods stirred uneasily. If not even Apollo claimed them, their source was unknown. Hera's voice was calm but steady. "Mortals hear the horizon. If we remain silent, their faith may falter." Zeus rose, lightning faint in his hand. Not in anger but thought. "I have ruled storms. I have seen empires rise and fall, but never has the horizon itself spoken." The council fell into silence. Oracles had given fragments, glimpses, echoes of something vast, but none could say what it was. Mortals carried the words like fire. They carved them in stone, sang them in hymns, whispered them to children. Prophecy, once spoken, cannot be unspoken. Sailors looked to the sea with caution. Farmers planted seeds with new prayers. Kings paused in their ambitions, crowns heavy with doubt. The horizon had not revealed itself, but its voice already lived in mortal and divine alike. The world waited, not in silence, but in expectation. Every whisper, every echo, every prophecy was a tide. It drew gods and mortals nearer to something unknown. Zeus gazed westward, his mind heavy as storm. "The horizon speaks," he murmured, "but its meaning remains hidden." The council disbanded, gods retreating in unease. Below, the world held its breath, for once prophecy takes root, it is unstoppable as dawn. Clouds gathered, long before rain touched the earth. They rolled across the sky, heavy and slow, as though the heavens prepared to speak. Yet no thunder broke, no lightning split the air. It was a storm of silence. Mortals felt it first in the rhythm of their days. Farmers paused, sensing the weight of the sky. Sailors pulled nets early, uneasy beneath calm but pressing air. Shepherds led their flocks home, unsettled even in clear fields. In cities, silence entered the streets. Children played in softer voices. Merchants haggled quietly, eyes lifted to the horizon. The storm was not yet here, but all felt it waiting. On Olympus, the gods felt its approach. Zeus stood at the mountain's edge, eyes fixed west. The horizon seemed closer, its shadows forming into shape. For all his power, he could not see beyond it. Poseidon rose from the sea, trident dripping with salt. "The waters withdraw before a tide I have never known," he said. Something greater was coming. Zeus gave no reply. Athena stepped forward, gray eyes steady. "Mortals feel it. Gods feel it. The horizon moves." Hermes flickered into view, restless no more. "I've flown across the world. Everywhere is the same. Quiet markets, uneasy kings, children with strange dreams." He frowned, solemn. "Even I cannot outrun this shadow." Hera's gaze swept across them all. "It is not storm nor sea, not dream nor wind. It is all of them, a tide rising everywhere." Below, mortals gathered too. Fires were lit earlier and burned longer into the night. Sailors tied ships tighter, though no storm clouds threatened. Priests prayed louder, longing for certainty. But certainty did not come, only silence. Not cruel, not empty. A silence full of meaning, breath held before speech, the kind that makes even the strong hesitate. One twilight, the first signs came. Winds shifted, carrying a sound that was not sound. A hum so faint, it felt like the earth itself breathing. Children stopped their games. Elders fell quiet mid-story. Fishermen let their nets drop into still water. Everywhere, faces turned west. The horizon glowed faintly, not with the sun, but with something else. A shimmer, a pulse, as if shadow and light were learning to walk together. No one spoke. They only watched. On Olympus, lightning flickered in Zeus's hand. Not cast, not formed, but restless. He turned to his kin. "The horizon approaches. It does not wait. It comes of its own will." Apollo lowered his head, his lyre silent. "I feel it too. A song not mine. Deep, rising from earth and sea. Even the god of music found no harmony in it." The storm gathered, though no rain fell. It gathered in hearts, in thoughts, between words. A storm not of weather, but of being. Mortals whispered of endings. Others dared to hope for beginnings. None could know. The horizon revealed only enough to keep them watching. So gods and mortals waited, not for thunder, not for waves, but for a storm of silence, presence, and approach. The horizon drew closer still. The horizon stirred, and the world began to listen. At first, the signs were small, so small they could be missed by those unwilling to notice. A well that had flowed for centuries suddenly ran dry. Then it surged again, its water glowing faintly under the moonlight. In the fields, crops ripened too soon, leaves shining with a silvery hue. Children dreamed of places they had never seen, yet described in perfect detail. Forests of crystal, oceans without end, skies lit by two suns. When they awoke, their voices echoed as though carrying something more than words. Travelers spoke of birds flying in shapes, as if spelling hidden messages. Sailors swore they saw mountains rise from the horizon, only to vanish on approach. Priests searched old scrolls, desperate for meaning. Kings sent riders, but they returned with nothing but confusion. On Olympus, the gods spoke in measured tones. Athena said the signs were not chaos, but warnings in disguise. Hermes admitted they outran even him, always waiting where he arrived. Hera said signs were seeds of change, growing into something vast. Zeus stayed silent, his eyes on the pulsing horizon. Among mortals, awe turned into unease. Markets hushed, song grew quiet, stories carried more weight. Yet not all feared the signs. Some believed they promised abundance, or new lands across the sea. Children shared their dreams with wonder, not dread. Perhaps, in their innocence, they understood best. For the signs were not cruel, only different. They reminded the world it was not fixed, not finished, not final. One dusk, a village gathered by glowing waters. They stood still, listening as waves rolled like whispered speech. A child touched the tide and smiled. "The sea is singing," they said, and all felt it was true. The story spread, growing into legend before the horizon revealed itself. At last, Zeus spoke on Olympus. "These are not threats, they are invitations." The horizon did not wish to frighten, it wished to be seen. The gods fell silent, and they understood. The first signs were beginnings written in dream and stone. The horizon was knocking, asking to be welcomed. Fear lingered, but so did wonder. The signs had come. The horizon was near, and all would have to choose what to do when it arrived. The signs swept across the earth like a tide that touched every shore. Gods debated, prophets whispered, and kings wondered. But among mortals, resolve began to stir. The horizon was not Olympus's alone. It belonged to farmers, sailors, and children who dreamed of unseen places. In a mountain village, elders gathered beneath an ancient oak. "We cannot wait for gods to tell us," one elder said. "If the horizon comes, it will not ask if we are ready." So mortals began to act. Farmers stored grain, not in fear but in purpose. They saw shimmering crops as both a gift and a question. Would they hoard or would they share? In cities, merchants forgot gold and spoke of balance. What use is wealth if the horizon changes all value? On the shores, sailors untied their ships. "To wait is to wither," one captain said. "To sail is to see." Children spoke their dreams, and parents listened. A crystal forest became a map. 2 suns became a song. Their innocence charted what scholars dared not imagine. Temples filled with silence and song alike. Some prayed louder, clinging to certainty. Others lit candles for courage, not answers. Faith shifted from knowing to enduring. On Olympus, gods watched with quiet surprise. "They do not wait for us," Zeus murmured. "They move as if the horizon is theirs." "Perhaps it is," Athena replied softly. "Mortals shaped destiny, brick by brick, song by song. A blacksmith forged tools for journeys untold. A mother taught her children to seek, not just to pray. A healer gathered herbs for illnesses unseen. None knew what the horizon would bring. Still, they prepared. Resolve was not born of certainty. It was born of courage to face uncertainty. The horizon glowed faintly in every vision. Some called it danger. Others called it promise. Mortals cared less for names than for choice. They would not cower. They would not wait for Olympus to decide. They prepared not with war, but with unity. In taverns, strangers spoke like old friends. In markets, food was shared without coin. In homes, stories strengthened spirits, not soothed fears. Across lands and seas, mortals wove resolve like steel. The horizon was coming. They would meet it with steady hands and open eyes, for the world was theirs to shape. The gods held power, but mortals held resolve, and sometimes resolve was the greater force. On Olympus, silence weighed heavier than thunder. Mortals prepared with unity, while the gods stood divided. Zeus sat upon his throne, lightning flickering in his hand. His eyes stayed fixed on the glowing horizon, pulsing like breath. Athena broke the stillness first. "Mortals act with resolve," she said. "They prepare not because they know, but because they believe. Should we do less than they?" Poseidon leaned on his trident, voice rolling like distant surf. "The seas withdraw before a tide I do not command," he said. "I fear what comes may unmake what we know." Hera's gaze was sharp. "Fear or caution?" she asked. "The horizon does not bow to rule. It comes whether we welcome it or not." Apollo spoke softly, his lyre silent beside him. I hear songs not my own. They rise from earth and sky alike. If I cannot join them, perhaps I must learn to listen. Hermes paced the marble floor, restless as wind. I have outrun storms, carried words to the ends of the earth. But this meets me before I arrive. Where does a god go then? Artemis whispered from the shadows. The wild creatures grow still. Forests hold their breath. Nature listens. Perhaps we should too. The council's voices wove tension through Olympus. Each spoke truth, yet none found certainty. Gods thrived on control, but the horizon was not theirs to command. It was vast, untamed, unruled. Finally, Zeus rose. His presence filled the chamber with a weight of choice. We are not masters of this horizon, nor its prey, he said. We are witnesses. To act or not, both are choices. Silence pressed heavy again. Hera spoke first. If mortals can prepare without certainty, so can we. Perhaps our power is not to command, but to meet it with them. Athena nodded slowly. Wisdom is not knowing the end. It is walking toward it with open eyes. But Ares clenched his fists. You speak of walking, watching, listening. What if it is foe? Do we lay down arms and wait to be undone? Zeus's gaze did not waver. If it is foe, weapons will not save us. If it is friend, weapons will betray us. Either way, war is not the answer. The chamber fell silent once more. Even Ares had no reply. The dilemma weighed heavier than any storm. Act with mortals and risk pride. Stand apart and remain blind. The council dispersed, each carrying the burden of choice. Athena lingered by the steps, her eyes thoughtful. To choose together is strength, she whispered. To choose apart is weakness dressed as pride. Zeus remained by the throne, watching the pulsing horizon. Lightning coiled in his hand, but he did not cast it. For even the king of Olympus knew this was no storm to conquer. It was a mystery to be met. And the gods, for all their might, stood as uncertain as mortals at dawn's edge. The horizon glowed, patient and steady, and Olympus, for all its power, felt very small beneath it. The horizon swelled, darker and brighter all at once. Its glow touched oceans, mountains, and the quiet fields of mortals. The world itself seemed to lean forward, listening. On Olympus, the gods gathered again. No thunder, no music, only the weight of waiting. Zeus stood at the edge of the council hall. He watched clouds bend toward the glow like tides, obeying a hidden pull. Athena's voice was steady but low. The horizon grows. It answers no question, yet it demands one. Hera's eyes narrowed. It is not ours to master, but it is ours to meet. Poseidon lifted his trident, its surface reflecting the strange light. The seas no longer obey me. Waves bend not to storm, but to this force. Apollo closed his eyes. I hear its song now, clearer, louder. It weaves into mortal voices. Perhaps it calls for harmony, not defiance. Artemis nodded, her voice soft. The wild are restless, yet not afraid. They wait. Perhaps they know something we do not. Hermes slowed his restless steps. Even speed cannot outrun it. Perhaps speed is not what is needed. Zeus turned from the horizon to face them. Mortals rise together. They are small, yet they do not falter. Shall we stand apart, or shall we stand with them? Ares clenched his fists, but his voice held less fire. If there is no war, then let there be strength. If no battle, then let there be courage. The council grew quiet again. Each god faced the same truth. The horizon was coming, and choice would not wait. Beyond Olympus, mortals lit fires on hills and mountains. Not of fear, but of unity. Their glow flickered against the vast light on the horizon. For the first time, Olympus saw not weakness in mortals, but reflection. Strength not in thunder, but in togetherness. The rising tide was not just of the horizon. It was of courage, flowing from earth to sky. And even the gods, high above, felt it wash through them. The night stretched long, unwilling to release the world into light. Across the earth, mortals kept fires burning, watching the horizon grow wider, brighter, nearer. In villages, on ridges, by seas, people gathered together. They sang, prayed, whispered, not knowing what the dawn might bring. Their voices rose into the air as one chorus, and Olympus listened. The gods had argued and doubted. Now, in this final night, they stood together once more. The hall was silent, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the stillness before decision. Zeus looked upon his kin, the glow from the horizon lighting their immortal faces. Not thunder, not fire, only reflection of something vast and unknown. Tomorrow is not ours to shape, Zeus said. It comes as it will, but we may choose how to meet it. Athena's voice was calm. Wisdom is not in certainty. It is in courage, in walking into the unknown with open eyes. Hera's tone softened, free of sharpness. Mortals are small, yet they face the horizon together. So should we. Poseidon struck the floor with his trident, firm but not angry. The seas bow to this light. Let me bow as well, not in surrender, but in respect. Apollo strummed a single note, ringing like a thread of hope. The song is no longer theirs nor ours. It belongs to all. One by one, the gods nodded. They would not stand above mortals, but with them. As night waned, mortal fires burned brighter. The gods descended in quiet grace. They walked among the people, unseen, felt as a breeze or spark of warmth. Mortals raised voices higher, sensing they were not alone. The glow of the horizon met their fires, earth and sky mirroring one another. Then came the moment. The first light broke across the horizon. It was not storm, nor flame, nor silence. It was dawn, vast, radiant, endless. The world did not end. It began anew. The horizon was no enemy. It was a door. The light was not destruction, but invitation. Mortals gazed upward, fear dissolving into wonder. The gods too felt awe, stirred by something greater than themselves. Zeus lifted his hand, not to cast lightning. He opened his palm to receive the light. And the light answered, not to one, but to all. The horizon had not come to take. It had come to remind that even in power there is humility, that even in fear there is courage, that even in ending there is beginning. The fires of mortals burned with the radiance of the horizon. For the first time, Olympus and earth stood together. The final dawn rose with peace, not thunder, with hope, not fear, not as a question, but as an answer. And in that light, mortals and gods understood. The horizon had never been dark. It was only waiting for them to see.